Hello, everyone, and welcome to a series of pre-event speaker interviews in the run-up to our World Hydrogen North America Congress, which is taking place in Houston this year from the 31st of March for 3 days. I'm Dominic Coyne, the program director, and I'm joined here today by Paul Rosa from Penske Truck Leasing. Paul is the Senior Vice President of Procurement and Fleet Planning at Penske Truck Leasing. With over 35 years of experience in the transportation industry, Paul oversees the company's fleet of more than 445,000 vehicles, handling everything from vehicle purchasing to asset management and fleet planning. His impressive career at Penske spans 4 decades, during which he has held a variety of leadership roles, including Vice President of Vehicle Supply and Planning. Paul's extensive experience in fleet management and procurement makes him a key voice in the future of transportation and a leader in no doubt what will be a crucial industry for the growth of the hydrogen sector. Paul, great to have you with us.
Dominic, it's so great to be with you, and I'm grateful to have the opportunity to share some thoughts on hydrogen and where it might be going.
Great stuff. Thank you, Paul. We'll get stuck in straight away. The first question we have for you really is, would you be able to give our audience a bit more of a background about you and your interest in hydrogen and the wider energy space in general?
Sure. So Penske Truck Leasing is a global provider of transportation, and we pride ourselves on understanding and operating all of the available technologies for transportation, in this case, trucks on the road. It doesn't matter if it's a light duty, medium duty, or heavy duty vehicle. We want to be sure we understand everything that's out there so we can provide solutions to our customers. And in my responsibilities, I've been involved in that for over 20 plus years now in the roles that I'm in or have been in, as well as currently in. And, we pride ourselves in partnering with many of the providers of all technologies, as well as componentries and other aspects of the application needs out there in transportation. So, it's important to us that we get deep into understanding the technology's capabilities, deep into the understanding of the vehicle's limitations, and therefore we're able to make proper recommendations to our customers as to which vehicle may be ready for their operation, or maybe it is a little bit more time to kind of evolve. So it's important to us that we get close to this. We meet with all the players in the industry, not just in this case hydrogen. Now, but we've done the same thing recently with electric, and we've done the same thing prior with CNG, and of course with other internal combustion engine solutions like diesel and gas. So Dominic, it's an important aspect of our operation for us to understand all technologies. Hydrogen seems to be that one that's gaining activity, momentum, and a little bit more traction, if you will. So we're excited to see where it may go.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think you're not alone in that. There is certainly a wide range of people that are enticed by the idea and possibilities of what hydrogen will do in the mobility space, certainly in terms of long haul, which brings us nicely onto your speaking topic at the event. You're going to be joining us in a panel on the 1st of April, looking specifically at the future of hydrogen mobility, the challenges and opportunities there. Could you perhaps give us a bit more an idea of what opinions you want to share and what questions you're hoping to get answered out of that panel in terms of the mobility space, and I guess the answers that you're looking for your customers from being part of this event as well?
Yeah, Dominic, so we get many questions from our tens of thousands of customers that operate our vehicles when they hear about a new technology. And I think we have to learn from what we've already experienced for the last 5 years with battery electric vehicles here in the United States as to, what have we had to work through over these past 5 years. And I think from there you can say, okay, you kind of start that same timeline with hydrogen and where it's at today. And what are those things? You get into which manufacturers will actually provide a hydrogen vehicle. There's a lot of activity, a lot of conversation. Some have had their early launches, some have pushed out now for a few more years. So we're going to see how that all starts to take shape. We're going to see who jumps in the fuel cell versus ICE or a hydrogen fuel source engine. We're going to see which one is the predominant technology there. So there's a lot to kind of see where that goes. Who's going to play in which class of vehicle, if you understand the classes in the United States, whether it's just going to stay in the heavy duty world, or will it drop down into the medium duty space? Will anyone in the light duty world adopt a hydrogen fuel cell or an ICE hydrogen solution? I don't know, but those are one of the things that I'm interested in understanding as we go forward with this. You then can get into what we learned in electric is, how do you power the battery electric vehicles? And that's with electricity, of course. So infrastructure. So you get into what's happening in the infrastructure space here. Where's the creation of hydrogen coming from? Who's going to be providing that? Is it going to be created liquid and then gasified and transported? I mean, there's so many things from the infrastructure side of things that have to be figured out. Is regulation going to move this faster or slower? In the United States, obviously, we've had a transition in administrations, which has kind of like shifted the focus, I think, a little bit from what it was expected to go towards maybe slowing down a tad now. So you got to see now, will that accelerate things or will it decelerate things? We will see. There were 4 things that I used to label whenever I spoke on this topic, or spoke on a topic related to alternative fuel sources. And I used to call them, I still do, but it's not related to hydrogen. What I mean by that is I used to call them the not so fab 4 for those that are Beetle fans. Is you have range being the one is not so fab 4 because range is a limitator as it relates to battery electric. The second one is weight and spec. That was another challenge that many of the fleets have to be thinking about as it relates to electric vehicles. Well, you don't have to really worry about those with hydrogen, meaning range is not necessarily as much of an issue anymore because if a filling station is available, well, now you can quickly fill the tanks. Maybe it's 15, maybe it's 20 minutes with a high-speed fill station, and then you could be on your way again. And the range isn't as limited because you can have the number of tanks stacked in the back of the cab that could give you kind of the similar type of experience as you would today with a diesel. Where there are still the other 2 not so fab 4, and that is the infrastructure, which I mentioned a moment ago, is how fast will hydrogen fuel stations come on board? I'm not so sure they're going to come on board as fast as we all think they might, and that could slow things down. And the last of the not so fab 4 is the cost side. I mean, it's widely known that a battery electric vehicle is significantly higher than a diesel unit. Well, hydrogen, whether it's ICE or fuel cell, like I mentioned earlier, which technology will prevail, maybe both do, but that's going to be a higher cost than battery electric. So fleets are really challenged with how can I make sense from a TCO of the electric vehicle, and if hydrogen is going to be maybe a little bit more expensive, how do I make sense of that? So these are the things I'd say will be spinning throughout the next year or so that I'm looking forward to talking with and answering some questions on, giving some perspective with, because we do have a significant amount of experience thus far, not only with electric, but diesel. And I think we have a good opinions of hydrogen.
That's a really great summary, Paul. I appreciate you sharing that. So the not so fab 4, to summarize for the audience again. So it was the range, the weight, and the spec, the infrastructure, and the cost. Now, out of those 4 that you mentioned, I think you said the first 2 were perhaps less of a concern now, as perhaps they might have been with other technologies. For hydrogen specifically, what do you envisage being a bigger problem between infrastructure and cost? We have a bit of a chicken versus egg problem coming up in terms of the demand versus the supply. Do you think which will be the bigger barrier, the infrastructure or the cost side?
Yeah, so Dominic, let me just clarify what you summarized. The range and the weight and spec are still issues with the battery electric, but I don't think it's going to be an issue with a hydrogen vehicle if we get to that point. So of the other 2, infrastructure and cost, they kind of go hand in hand, unfortunately, because I think we're going to have to see how it plays out. which one is going to be the larger challenge. What do I mean by that? We still haven't figured out in the United States the creation of hydrogen and the transport. So when I put in the infrastructure, it's all that goes around with that. It's the creation of hydrogen. It's the transportation of hydrogen. It's the number of filling stations. It's the cost of hydrogen. I also have the opinion that if in fact hydrogen is created more and more as a fuel source, that there's going to be many other industries that want to utilize it. So now there might be a higher demand for hydrogen. So if there's a higher demand for hydrogen, maybe the transportation space is going to feel an increased cost that could maybe separate it from fleets saying, I'm going to be paying more for hydrogen than I would for diesel. Maybe I really can't go there. So then you jump into the cost side, and the cost that it's going to take to put in hydrogen filling stations, I think is going to slow down the proliferation of filling stations, that it makes sense for a fleet to go and use hydrogen as a vehicle of choice. And then you get into what I mentioned, the cost there for hydrogen itself could now, and then you get the hydrogen of the technology on the vehicle. When you wrap those three things together, it could push more fleets to the sidelines for the early adoption of this. And we could see it not happen in larger adoption percentage for many years in the future. So there's just a lot that has to play out. We're so early in the game is what I would say. I used to say in 2021 and 2022 that we're in the pregame of a 4-game football game. And I think we're in the same situation today in 2025. We're in the pregame of the hydrogen game. So that would be a quick summary on that follow-up question.
Yeah. It's a good summary. Just one final question on that point before we go on to our last question, and that would be, would you like to see potential more government support in terms of policies or incentives for people in the area such as yourself, truck handling and fleet management, to make that switch to the technology? Because, if cost really is a barrier, perhaps, the industry just needs a little bit of help to get going.
Well, I think that's a bigger question that maybe requires a larger discussion and a longer answer, because now you're getting into what is the need for hydrogen right now? And if there's a need, because now you're getting into maybe the whole climate side of things versus the actual necessity of the fuel source and the technology. Is it happening too fast because it's being pushed too quickly, and thus it's not the right timing? If it happens naturally, organically over a longer stretch of time, where certain funds can be allocated, so this can build out over more years, then I think that maybe has a better chance of success, versus there's a significant amount of money that comes right away to try and do something. And now we're underutilizing whatever infrastructure is put in motion, because the technology is not going to get there fast enough. The cost side of the technology is not going to get there for fleets to make sense. So I just think it requires a larger conversation amongst federal, state regulators or policymakers to say, let's have a conversation to see what makes sense right here, right now. I don't want to see what happened with the electric vehicle, that it was trying to be pushed too fast and the technology wasn't mature enough for many people to adopt. And we find ourselves now, 4 or 5 years later, where we did not see what we thought we would see in the prior 4 years with adoption. I think we're going to maybe see the same thing with hydrogen if it's pushed too hard, too quickly.
Right. It's a very good point to make. And so I guess we've discussed the general concerns and challenges, and in some cases opportunities coming up. If I may ask you one final question, a bit more specific to your business, and that would be, you've got extensive experience overseeing a fleet of 445,000 vehicles. That's a lot of vehicles. How do you foresee the transition, assuming all these things line up well? How do you foresee the transition to hydrogen-powered vehicles impacting fleet management at a large scale? No doubt there's going to be different systems and processes you're going to need. So, what challenges do you think will be the hardest for companies like Penske to overcome in making that shift in technology?
It's something, Dominic, that we have done for so many years. I mean, being in business now in the transportation space for 56 years, we understand what you have to go through in different iterations of new technologies, whether it's an improvement in engines, whether it's an improvement in transmissions, whether it's an improvement in other specifications. I mean, so it's something that we do all the time. So we're always evolving as technology is evolving. So it's kind of our normal operation to, we have teams that are doing nothing but evaluating new technologies, whether it be vehicle component or other, and then we adopt accordingly and we adapt accordingly. So I think we have the appropriate people and processes in place, and then time comes into play. What do I mean by that? Well, we have a pretty robust approach to new technologies. It's a regular conversation with all of our providers, all of our vehicle partners. A year to 2 years in advance, they're supposed to share with us what are they thinking about, and then usually a year before launch, we're talking or getting maybe a prototype of the technology, and then we're evaluating it. So we're prepared to see where it works within our operations, as well as which one will work with our various customer applications, as I mentioned from the first question. So it's something we've always done. I think we're well prepared to handle hydrogen and others as they come along. I do think, though, it's going to take a little bit longer, as I mentioned earlier, because we don't know yet what it can or can't do. We haven't gotten that many miles on the road yet with a hydrogen fuel cell. We have experienced it already some. There isn't a hydrogen internal combustion engine out there yet, so we have to wait for that to be developed. So there's still so many unanswered questions for us to say, we're okay, or we have these obstacles to jump, or we have these other things that we've cleared. That's why it's exciting in one way, but it's also concerning in another, that we want to see this stuff come on board so quickly, but sometimes it has to take its normal time.
Yeah, we don't want to rush it. We want to do it carefully and make sure we find the right places where it works best. And I echo your sentiments there. And it's going to be an interesting time at the event to find out the answers to those questions and many more. Paul, that's all we've got time for, but thank you very much for your insights and for sharing your opinions. The audience, for those listening, if you want to hear more from Paul, he'll be speaking on the 1st of April in the panel on mobility in our end user stream. If you want to find more out about this event, please check out our website. You can view our other speakers and the rest of the agenda. Thanks again, Paul. Do you have any closing remarks you want to say to our listeners?
Have a great day, great month. Look forward to seeing you in April. Let's make 25 the best year yet.
Thanks so much, Paul. Appreciate your time again, and we'll see you in Houston.